Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back into Brian's Badass Reviews. I am super excited about these next few series of videos that are going to come out. It is going to be Brian's Badass Reviews' first ever whiskey week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a review every single day of the week, 5 days in a row. And I know like other YouTubers do that all the time, and that's just the thing. But I've never done it, so I want to try it. So I figure I'm going to pick some of my favorite whiskeys here, and I'm going to share them with you. Let's get right into it. Day number 1, Whiskey Week. Kicked intro! Little bit of business out the way real quick. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you like what's going on the channel. Hit that bell notification. I got new videos coming out pretty much every single week. And this week, every day of the week. Smash that like button if you like what's going on in the video. It really helps me out. Let's get right into it. This week is gonna be Whiskey Week on Brian's Badass Reviews. Now I do a bunch of beer reviews. I do all kinds of other things on the channel. And I've been drinking a little bit of whiskey lately, so I figured, why not? Let's do a little bit of whiskey tasting. My plan here is to pick maybe one of each style. I'm gonna do a little bit of American whiskey, a bourbon, Irish whiskey, probably a Scotch, and I'll probably mix in some other shenanigans inside the videos. For the first one that I chose, it's going to be MICHTER'S American Whiskey. Let me dish just a little bit of history on the company because this company has been on a roller coaster ride. MICHTER'S was first known as Shanks after John Shank, the founder, in 1753. And it was basically made of a rye whiskey, and the rye whiskey was so popular in the area that Pennsylvania lore, which is where it started, John Shank from Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania lore said that George Washington himself liked the whiskey so much that he visited the distillery, purchased a bunch of whiskey to fortify his troops in the Revolutionary War, to keep them kind of fortified and warm throughout that long battle, through those long winters. That's a lot of history right there, if it's true. In the mid-1800s, the company changed hands and was purchased and became known as Bombergers, and this went on right up until about Prohibition. Prohibition in 1919, sad day in American history, wiped out a lot of these whiskey distillers and a lot of people that made any type of spirit, and MICHTER'S or Bombergers was one of those distilleries. They did come back once they kind of got rid of Prohibition, and over the next few decades, it changed a bunch of hands until a couple of college boys in the 1990s that went to Yale, graduated Harvard Law, they kind of bought the company, took over the name, the trademark wasn't used. I mean, it had basically been abandoned. The distillery in Pennsylvania went into disrepair, and then these guys bought it up and they trademarked it and they moved it to Kentucky. And they figured Kentucky was the greatest whiskey place in America to kind of get the most talent to help revive the brand of MICHTER'S. And so as we stand today, it's still up and running and moved from Pennsylvania to Kentucky. And it's just a damn good whiskey. Now, talking about this actual bottle itself, the MICHTER'S American Whiskey, this is 41.7% alcohol by volume. The difference between a bourbon and an American whiskey is bourbon is aged in new oak barrels. Well, for the American whiskey, MICHTER'S ages it in soaked white oak barrels. So basically used barrels, and that's basically the only distinction. So as I'm going through and kind of nosing it and tasting it, we are gonna get some of those bourbon notes out of it. But hey, enough blabbing, right? Let's drink some whiskey. I'm just gonna pour a little bit of a taste. I'm not gonna do a full 2-ounce shot here. We're proud to offer you our unblended small batch American whiskey in the MICHTER'S tradition. Hailing from one of America's first distilleries, this whiskey is made from the highest quality American grains and matured to the peak of perfection in bourbon-soaked white oak barrels. It is then further mellowed by our signature filtration. So I got my trusty tasting glass here, and I'm just gonna kind of get a little bit of the nose scent in it. And right off the bat, I get super caramel, almost maybe not quite butterscotchy. And you can just get a little bit of that wood note kind of on the end of it. All right, I'm going in. So right away, you get that it's very sweet. You get those caramel notes, very approachable, very easy to drink. Just a little bit of a subtle burn just right on the front of the palate, but it washes down very smooth. It doesn't leave a big alcohol burn. Again, it's only 41.7%, so that's not bad at all. just caramel. I get so much caramel, so much vanilla, almost a buttery, creamy kind of vanilla caramel. I keep saying vanilla caramel. I guess that's because that's the most pronounced note. With just a tinge, I can taste a little bit of a sense of that barrel a little bit in the background, but it's so good. And you know what? Sometimes the best thing to do is to compare it to something else, because as you're trying to pick out the notes, it's good to kind of compare it to another one. So I actually happen to have the MICHTER'S bourbon, so I think we should do a little A/B comparison. I'll be right back. All right, so I grabbed this bottle of the bourbon out of there. Surprisingly enough, looking at the ABV on that, now this one, we said this was 41.7%. This is actually 45.7%, so about 4% more on the bourbon. Grab myself another glass here. Let's do just a quick little A/B comparison here between the two. Let me pull it right out of the damn bottle. No, just kidding, I can't do that. So we'll pour a little bit of shot. Again, I do really enjoy both of these. It's one of my go-tos. Just gonna pour a little taster sampler there. I don't wanna get too crazy. My wife's kicking me out because I'm boozing it up too damn much. Definitely more of a wood note right away off of the bourbon. It's not quite as sweet. It's not quite as vanilla-y or caramelly. I think the American whiskey is a little brighter, whereas the bourbon has just a little bit more of a darker note to it. Maybe more of that wood, less of the caramel, but it is still very there, and it's still very sweet. Oh, and it just smells so good. I've got to get it on the lips. So what's interesting about the bourbon is even though it's a higher proof, it's interesting how I'm not getting as much of I hate to use the word burn, because it's just, I'm not getting that initial burn on the front of the palate like I did with the American whiskey. It's very smooth front to back. I would almost say, even though this is a higher proof on the bourbon, that it's almost easier to drink than the American whiskey, even though they're both super easy to drink. If that makes any sense at all. And it's not that different from the nose. You get more of that wood from the bourbon, from that new oak barrel. I would say it's not as sweet. There's not as much vanilla. There's not as much caramel, at least comparatively speaking. I mean, in the general grand scheme of whiskeys, these are going to be very sweet, very candy-like, and you can totally tell that they come out of the same distillery. They're kind of brothers, and they're both just so good. Price point on these, I think whiskey can be very subjective, not only in just the taste and the smell, and it's different to other people, but as far as regions goes, the price can vary depending where you're going. So I've seen this American whiskey right here in different stores in my area here in South Texas, way South Texas. I'm not talking San Antonio, South Texas, or I'm talking way South Texas, where I can walk into one store and this will be $60, and I can go drive 20 minutes away to another store and you'll see it for $39, $40, $41. In my area, the bourbon, you can get it for about $40. Maybe you can find it a little cheaper in some spots, but they're just so good. If you haven't tried the MICHTER'S yet and you're on the whiskey wagon and you like a bourbon and you like the caramelly, kind of more dessert type of whiskeys, there's not going to be any peat in these. There's no smoke. It's not cask strength. It's not going to burn your face off as it's going down. You just want something to sip and enjoy. I highly recommend MICHTER'S. It's awesome. I'm not associated in any kind of way. These are just my opinions, right? So holy crap, I think that's day one of Whiskey Week in the books. I'm going to try to keep these videos shorter. In the next ones, I probably won't go into so much detail in the history. I might just crack the bottle and take some sips. I hope you guys join me for this week-long journey. I know there's a million different whiskey channels out there that you guys can follow. This is just kind of my little spin on it, my little beginning of the year, 1 week stretch on whiskey. Maybe I'll do more throughout the year, I'm not sure. But that's all I got for today's whiskey review. Stay tuned tomorrow where I'm dropping another one. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps me out so much. Hit that bell notification if you liked what happened in the video today or any of my other videos. Hit me up with that like. Check me out on the Instagram. Check me out on the Twitter. Check me out on the Facebook. Check me out on briansbadassreviews.com. I do have a freaking website. Anyways, that's all I got for the review today, guys. You know what I like to say, you gotta be kind to each other. You gotta do what makes you happy. That's it for me. I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out. Peace.